I've spoken a lot on this channel about the pattern of revolution and its destructive effects. Today I will talk about the radical opposite of the revolutionary mindset, as envisioned in Christianity. Revolution has the symbolism of meaninglessness and cyclical turning. Because as you overturn the current order to make yourself king, you face the threat of someone else doing the same to you. The kind of anti-revolutionary behavior depicted in Man of God actually still uses the momentum of revolution, but turns it around, not against your opponent, but against the unseen enemy. It's called turning the other cheek. In turning the other cheek, you are still allowing the passions to run their course in a way, but you are turning their wrath inwards to yourself. The fire that burns the other in his passions becomes a purifying fire in your heart, the perfect hearth for the presence of our Lord. In revolutionary stories, the son rises up against his father, whether in pride, to enforce independence, or coming from a sense of injustice or mistreatment. But here the father strikes his son. Saint Nektarios' spiritual father not only disciplines him, which would have been fine, but betrays him, cuts him off completely, and unjustly. Nektarios' father has fallen to bad counsel and was deceived into thinking Nektarios betrayed him. He is the father who takes a defensive position, expecting revolution from his son. He exiles Nektarios without giving him a chance to defend himself or dispel the misunderstanding. A caricature of Adam and Eve being expelled from Eden. Our dear Nektarios not only refrains from lashing out in his own defense, but he turns the other cheek. Again, again, and again. Thor, in Marvel's Thor Ragnarok, uses the chaos of revolution to his advantage in order to survive. In his humility, Nektarios uses the injustices against him to his spiritual advantage in order to grow closer to his fellow man and to God. At this first betrayal that sets the story in motion, we are given this scene, where he gives his shoes to a beggar. It signifies a significant leap in his spiritual purification. Just as Moses took off his sandals when he encountered the burning bush and ascended the holy mountain, Nektarios is removing the garments of skin he inherited from Adam and Eve at their exile. By removing this dead protective covering, he aims to leave the ground, so to speak, to ascend to paradise, to become united with God once more.
When the Lord becomes your only hope, it's then that one can feel His presence. I have been blessed lately to participate in your suffering, my brother.
The whole rest of the movie is a reiteration of this symbolic gesture of returning to paradise. Even his last wish to go see an icon of the Mother of God. She often represents for us paradise itself, and being carried there on a donkey, like how Christ enters Jerusalem. You might snicker and say, isn't that a bit perverted, the symbolism of removing your clothes and giving yourself to others, and then you think that's heaven, or even entering paradise, which is portrayed as a woman, in fact your own mother.
I want to speak to my mother.
Now this is where things get interesting. The symbolism is similar to the sexual act, which is actually communion. The symbolic hint at a possible scandal here actually plays itself out, as one of the things Nektarios is falsely accused of is sleeping with his beloved nuns, whom he guides in their asceticism. In Christianity, inappropriate sexuality has always been symbolic of idolatry, of misplaced and fruitless, even evil desire. But his symbolic removal of the garments of skin is innocent and free of inappropriate sexuality. In fact, sexuality aspires at its very best to what Saint Nektarios actually did in his life symbolically. The poor nun who is implicated in these false accusations is proven to be a virgin. Nektarios is innocent. His self-giving is pure and godly after all. The nuns are like the burning bush. They are in Nektarios' presence and authority, but they remain pure and distinct. How many men can boast of this feat of love? Do you see how God tries him, gives him obstacles which, if passed, become the very ladder by which he ascends to heaven? We follow his story until his very death, where there is one last and final gesture of purification, his clothes being removed. This time, the body itself is left behind. The lame man who shared his hospital room happens to touch his remaining garment and is healed. This is reminiscent to the passage in Luke chapter 8, where a woman is healed by merely touching the garment of Christ. In fact, you could even say that Saint Nektarios himself is the garment of Christ. He is not Christ himself, but through his closeness to Christ, he takes on the Lord's form and thereby inherits the kingdom of heaven. This is the fruit and the promise of theosis, that not only do you enter the gates of paradise, but those around you also get a second chance. Revolution is turned completely on its head, to the healing of man, body and soul, and even death loses its sting, and instead becomes the very means of returning to our Lord.